Afternoon, everyone. I've written in my notes good morning because I've done them last night and I was sure I'm giving the talk at 11. So I just want an hour, which is fine because it gave me a chance to, it gave me a bit of respite in between. So first of all, before any talks or anything, like, amazing that you're coming. I hope you're having fun. That's the whole point of today. I think we don't do it enough. So, massive thank you for Robin and the crew and for Cooper and Chris and everyone that runs around. It's not an easy thing to run a conference. Everything was very rushed. So I hope we're going to be kind of in line, but it is an AI and this intelligence era. So I asked an AI, I need to do a talk. So he said, you need to do who you are and put some stuff in and kind of loads of great ideas. So that didn't really work for me with my relationship with Andy's intelligence. But I did use AI to generate some images. So just hands up in the air. I am not autistic. I don't have graphic designer friends. I have kids and a dog that takes 100% of my time, of my free time nowadays. So no AI. So I'm David. I'm absolutely excited to be here, even though I am kind of a last minute replacement for Kirk. So if you came here to look about threat modeling, I will apologize. That's not what we're here for. I've been around for a bit. If you do know me, and if you don't know me, come and say hi. I can tell you my stories. I can tell you I still remember creating TCP/IP drivers for DOS systems to connect all pieces of junk together so they can talk. But I guess let's go into the story. Like, I had a chat with Kirk and he goes, finished so crap for dropping off StailCon, and told Robin I give a talk, which would have been an amazing talk, I'm sure. But those things happen in our life. And it's like, all right then. So I joked and I said, just tell him I'll come and do a talk. I haven't given a talk in some time, definitely not in conferences, for those of you who know why. I did some in my professional life every now and then when the need kind of calls for it. So on Wednesday evening, I was asked if I'll do a talk. So I said yes. So first of all, my apology. I hope to entertain you. I plan not to disappoint. I have no idea how it's going to go, seeing I literally am running thin on prep. But it's a topic that I think we need to explore and discuss, and I figured it's going to be great to have some limelight and have a chat with everyone. And if you, hopefully you arrived yesterday and you had a bit of fun and you got to network and talk to people. So Scott didn't come here, but if you know what happened with Scott's phone yesterday, that was a very interesting reference for that. So Robin asked me last night, even though kind of saying he asked me on Wednesday on a text already, but he asked last night, like, oh, right, I need a title for your talk because I'm going to announce it and all the changes we have for the conference. Like, okay, fine. So let's do a framework-led cybersecurity because I think it's important. I put my safe harbor that will kind of reference the CAF. You'll understand why as we go along with the conversation, but essentially, frameworks led to cybersecurity. It's needed. I thought it's a simple enough title, and since I'm not in the program anyway, and I'm not Kirk anyway, so, why not? So what is this talk really going to be about, or where do I'm trying to get? I like to try and cover some of I'm an old fart, right? So some of my observations, some of my experiences, not in a way that it's not just about the sexy stuff of cybersecurity, of breaking stuff. There is, in my experience and my observation, an inherent challenge that we have in this industry. And I can't say everyone, but a lot of businesses I worked with throughout my career, all pretty much sitting in the same boat. we are all reactive. Even though we have the best ideas that we can come up with technology, we're still operating in a very reactive manner. We literally just talked about it in the crew room. I put some questions for me to ask you on this slide. You see it in a second. But how many here are doing red team and kind of pen testing stuff job? No one. One. Great. Do you always get in?
Pardon?
Are you always getting in? Do you get your flags or your goals?
On occasion.
Mostly. Right? And the same question in reverse, if we think about the defensive side, which is my background. Can I tell you I caught everything 100%? No. If you've been to Andy's talk in the morning, all that signals that he's doing, it's freaking amazing. But when you do it because you don't sleep, it's easier. At the enterprise level, it's freaking complicated. Just so we're honest about it. Some of the real problem is every business, I think, live in the JFDI kind of mantra, especially with the examples we go through. I hope most of the bad words will be asterisks. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. And that's why I said, right, so I have a chance to hopefully not bore you all to death, but talk about some of those things that I tried to do, some of my thoughts. I'm guessing I'm nothing more than the average Joe, so probably others smarter than me in the field. Most likely it's a borrowed idea that I read before, but these are things that works, right? Some of the challenges are our focus. As a businesses, we focus on tools. We focus on point solutions. We looking around plugging holes if we're lucky, or just accepting that there's holes that needs plugging and we can't do much with those kind of holes. If Thomas would have been here, we get to him in a minute as well, but if Thomas would have been here, he probably would have freaking loved it. He gave a talk a couple of years ago, the last talk he gave, talking about not just buying tools, but doing something with those tools. And tools are challenges, right? And this is where, again, my experiences, my observation, frameworks, and we'll generalize framework just for a second, but frameworks give us a common language, a way that we can interact back to our management, to our leadership, to our businesses, to our stakeholders, whichever it would be. I'm very fortunate to have a diverse background. And as long as our business focus is kind of pushed and led by, I don't know, my C-suite, CIO, CTO, CEO, the board of trustee, the committee of ninjas, whatever there might be. And guess what? Someone who is assertive enough, read on the in-flight magazine or whatever news channel of flavor of the month, that this is the biggest risk that businesses have. That suddenly changed the way our organization operates and become our main focus and our way forward to try and capitalize, deliver better service, whatever buzzwords that comes with it. But there is a challenge because it's still an ad hoc type activity, right? Picking that framework, going into that common language, we can start fixing it. Taking our zero value activities, doing tons of hard work, really working our socks off, right? But having nothing to show for it at the end because it doesn't really fall into the understanding of the organization. Or the example we talked about around assurances, right? If I just want to assure this piece of equipment, can I still take the whole table and it will come with me? Maybe that will be my way forward, right? So how much that focus effort really translate into driving value? And if we change the way we think, and if our leadership at whatever levels they come is supportive, I've seen it. I've seen the benefits being reaped. I've seen the value changes within organization. Now, I keep leaving it here still as framework. Frameworks are great. I should probably mention a few, whether it's 27001, or whether it's the UK NCSC CAF, or whether it's NIST CIS controls together with all the supporting documentation that comes with it. It's quite a mature environment. Or it's the cybersecurity framework, CIS control, top 20, and the framework that comes with it, and the NIST cybersecurity framework. They're all amazing. The point is, this talk is, I absolutely would like to advocate for, if you can influence, to pick one. to pick one as your base. You can do them all, by the way. They're very similar. They ask for a lot of common old things, and they give you a shared direction moving forward. Annoyingly, it's recorded, but I'll say it anyway. Some of the reasons I have picked CAF in previous places I worked, because it was basic and simple enough to implement in the organization and serve as a springboard into maturity. Because if you go and to look at the NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 2 with 1.5 million control sample points, it becomes overwhelming a bit and sends you in all loads of places. Right? In essence, it helps us be a bit more proactive in the way we drive cybersecurity, in the way we plan for cybersecurity, in the way I ask for budget or resource allocation, and being able to change the narrative when it comes to doing cybersecurity. And I think that there is a trick. My interpretation of that is that frameworks are great, but maybe like I suggested before, they're all very similar. And the trick is to pick, I wouldn't say pick and match, but pick with the base and then add the additions that are relevant for what you need to do. And yes, it costs money, and yes, it takes time, and yes, it changes the focus, but it's a conversation that we need to have in order to elevate that maturity. Once we have maturity at the decision making, it becomes a lot easier to do the implementation. No framework is easy to implement. It must not be unsaid. They're all pain in the backside. But if used correctly and effectively, it gives that direction of travel. And it gives a good gap identification and analysis. And it gives a good budget allocation and resource requirement and understanding of our businesses at the end. As a defender, bad guys only need one good opportunities. I need to be on the toes all the time. It's very, very hard to continuously justify this new attack vector, this new 0 days, this new CVE with our change of state. And it's like, oh, you can't take this system because we've been using it since 1982 or something like that. And it's the only machine that can operate that device. It's like, can you get rid of the device? It's still supported. What if someone gets electrocuted? And they're doing health and safety. It's not my problem. But I think frameworks are there to serve as a base that we need to mold and modify and adjust it to our business needs. I'll show you in a little bit. It's towards later on in the slide. I'll actually show you a little bit how one idea, take it or leave it. But maybe since we are going to focus about the CAF and focus, this is AI paper. I can't do it in stickman. But kind of maybe just recap quickly what is the CAF. So the Cyber Assessment Framework from the NCSC. It's pretty much the basis for GovAssure if you're in any government type work or interested in it for whatever reason. They're trying to help shape the narrative, right? That's the statement from MCSC, I believe. It's not bad, and it's really nice because it breaks things into 4 sections that my leadership used to understand. And like I said, it gives you a place to grow from it, in my opinion. If you want to read what is it, here it is. I think I should have the link somewhere. But the core essence of the CAF, we just talk about the CAF. Cybersecurity framework breaks into 5, 6 segments now. I should have probably looked. I haven't been deep in the CAF for quite a few years now. It breaks into 4 objectives, 14 principles, 39 outcome over 443 indicators. And what drives the CAF is indicators of good practice, and you either pass, fail, or get a yellow mark. This is kind of how it is. It's been around from 2018, so GDPR and Brexit and NIS directive. NIS was a massive influence for that. It's been through a few iterations. CAF version 4 was officially launched in 2024 for reviews, I believe, and became official publication in 2025. Yeah, version 4, 2025. It's the latest updates for the framework. If you want to talk specifics about the CAF, I can share tons of resources. It's all public. It's all available. It's all making sense. There's a few things that I particularly appreciate with the maturity of the framework. I guess my takes, my needs, my observations, like assurances, proactive security, supply chain focus, which we kind of still lacking, and it's a very interesting and challenging point. Device management. If any of you ever heard the conversation on Cyber Essentials, and we laugh about it, but sometimes when it comes to implementation, it's very, very hard, especially if you're brave enough to come to your business and say, let's try and do it with no scope. Right? Some of the challenges of most of those frameworks and those efforts and those point in times is we box them into a scope that doesn't really help us. So how about if we try and do things holistically across the business? Right? Now it becomes really interesting. Right? I don't want to read those to you. Did I take any notes for myself to revise in here? Oh, and secure by design principles. That's the last one here, but I quite like it. So it's, yeah, as I said, it's not easy, and there's the evolution of the CAF and a bit of AI imagery. Because I mentioned Cyber Essential, I figured I'll put it here. In a second, you'll understand why. But again, everything the government does kind of interlace. So I like to think of Cyber Essential as those 5 core controls, right? It's a little bit more technical. It's not the best thing ever, but it's better than nothing. So suddenly we find ourselves in this conundrum that I used to work for a uni, and in the university, Cyber Essential is the gospel of excellence. Up until they read the paper written about the CAF, and then we changed some stuff. But Cyber Essential, Cyber Essential Plus, a great place to start. Sorry. Didn't like it. It's all right. And then we have GovAssure. GovAssure takes all the CAF principles and overlay it, and this is government requirement now for, I don't know what you are, MOD or secret organizations or hospitals or academia, and it will become more and more and more interesting in the UK when we're becoming more and more and more regulated environment. So this is kind of, I'll take a second pause here, because this is kind of trying to set out the scenes before going and kind of talking about what we've done with the permission of my old boss at the time. There's nothing secret there that is at risk, so hopefully you'll appreciate that. But what I'm trying to say is moving the JFDI mantra to a framework that gives us the ability to measure, check, and evaluate over time continuously, ideally. It changed the hearts and the minds of the business all the way to, and it doesn't happen on day one, I'll be absolutely honest, but over time, those programs get the recognition and mostly, in most cases, the praises of the board of governance, the C-suite, or whoever it is. It does help us show what is it that we're doing, what is it that the business needs to be done, why are we doing it, and how do we fare holistically. Since I've written some of the slides late at night, I don't kind of know if I'm going to repeat it or not. I didn't say it in my notes so far, but one important thing, not just one important thing, now I lost my own thread of thoughts, so I'm going to stay with my notes. We'll talk about the uni. It will come up. Getting old, sleepless. So when I started at the uni, one of the things we agreed, it was mainly greenfield, if you like. Maturity in universities varies. IT does security as part of the general function. There's no focus or focus jobs and conversation, didn't used to be, at least a few years back, to drive security across the business. So when I joined, we had a lot of conversation about picking a approach to being secure, not to do cyber, right? Not just to buy tools, not just to do security, but to try and transition the whole business into being more secure. And rather than JFDI, as the business is very normally used to do it, let's pick a framework, something we can run with. And at the time I put on the table, we talked about the cybersecurity framework, and we compared it with the CAF, and it made a lot more sense to go and run with the CAF. It didn't make a lot of sense. Okay, I'm lying. None of the tools, I joined the university in 2023. Every single tool set is American-based vendor. They all align with the NIST cybersecurity framework. You have to do adaptation. You didn't used to have out-of-the-box reporting. It's a little bit more challenging, but it does help set the right framework in many organizations, which is executive-led. More engaged or less engaged, different organizations do it in a different way. but it helps frame the narrative and drive to a common goal. And that's what the framework is set. It's set to give us that common goal so we can check what we do consistently and continuously. That was the idea. One thing that it is important for me, we'll dive into it for sure, but it's important to say it right now because you might want to heckle me with the question, is some of the business challenges when you're doing change, like, okay, let's pick a framework and let's start doing it. But let's not just do it for the finance system, which is probably a gold model for how to manage systems because they have to do it for their audit. But let's do it holistically across the business. Is sometimes we also need to appreciate that, and it helps me to say that, but we don't need to be perfect. We just need to know where our targets and where our goals are. That helps us a lot with doing some of the framing. So like I said, the university, we look at the CAF as a framework that drives us forward, right? Broken it down, this is the 4 core controls. It's too small, I can't see it on the screen here. I can move. Managing security risk, protecting against attack, detecting, and minimizing impact. Great, sounds amazing. User awareness, firewalling, logging, all the stuff that we know. And then on the left-hand side, we have the Cyber Essential, which is your technical control of managing your assets and your firewalls and your networks. And maybe a good point to add a self-disclaimer that when I ran my consultancy, what they did very well is help organizations achieve any standard on the world they wanted. Because if you want to hack around the standards, it's one of the easiest things to do. It's blooming pain in the backside to try and do it holistically across businesses. And this is the shift that's really interesting when we're managing to do that. It's like, how do we elevate maturity, not just here, but across what we do. So, the personal challenge I have, and it's most frameworks that we see out there, is they are very defined. They are either pass or fail. You have a control. We talked about the CAF 443. I'm pretty sure someone had it as a joke. We have to stop here. But you can either pass or fail, or maybe if we're really nice with you, we'll give you a yellow kind of grace period. But when we look at GovAssure, you either pass or fail. This is your overall scoring. This is how you present that finding back to the business. And it's very rigid. So I had conversations with Ian, I think my boss at the time. It's like, we need to do different. We need to do something else. Have you ever heard of CMMI? And he looks at me with puppy eyes like, no. Sorry?
This looks like CMMI, but this is like 2000.
But maturity models is a maturity model. The point of doing overlays, of taking that framework, which is essentially rigid, right? It's a CAF, it's 443 controls, there are 4 domains at the top, principle. We all know what we're trying to do. But suddenly now, let's stretch it a little bit, right? Because it's ours, and it's my way to help the business drive forward. So we've taken CMMI and we said, all right, there's 0 to 5. There's 6 stages in the CMMI. That gives me red, loads of ambers, and going towards green. And now I can start having a good conversation with the business, right? It gives me that strong measurements. It gives me ability to do overtime improvement, right? So now I can do micro steps rather than always fail in that section. It's like, look, these guys are doing a lot better now. And they're really getting there. Oh, look at this department. They're the gold standard for the business. Let's all do what they do. And like, I don't even need to do the work because we've done it already. I'll copy here. I'll paste it over there. Yay. Easy things, right? It's very, very hard to do that initial change to say, right, let's stick to a framework and let's do it holistically. This is the biggest challenge. But once we start doing it, it's easier to make the spreadsheet green, right? I've spoken to a lot of peers. Auditors are evil, compliance is not helping me be secure. Yes, no, doesn't really care. Don't care, doesn't really matter. It gives me a way to move forward. And this is why they hire me. They hire me to drive improvement. They don't hire me I'm not a pen tester, so I don't break shit. And I'm not a blue teamer anymore, so I don't find shit. I build security teams and build security capabilities within organizations. I quite enjoy it, actually. I think it's a great job. So, like we said, if we look Govashore, it's very rigid. So here is how the university ones used to look. Thank you for having me. This is how the university one used to look just before I left on our last revision. And you can see that it becomes a bit more colorful. But it's very, very clearly identified that we are not doing very, very great, because in any of the government frameworks, supply chain security is not embedded, and you cannot change a government framework, so you have to buy it through the framework. And it's getting better now, and the Procurement Act changed a few stuff that works in everyone's favor, but that's not how things used to be, right? So again, 4 objective, 14 principle, 39 outcomes, 443 indicators of good practice, which gives us something to measure and have a conversation with Ian, my boss, with my board of trustee, with the CAB members, and all the way to at the university with the vice chancellor when she came and had a chat, which was lovely. But when it came down to, we could also look at over time. This is year 1, year 2. So this is very, very immature. The last, I've seen the last one. I'm not there anymore, but it's brilliant when you start to be able to plot stuff and visualize your effort, your business challenges, your investment, your requirements, or whatever it is that you do. And green is improvement, gray stays as it is, red is a reduction in scoring, and it's as high level as it is. But that is a lot better than the In-Flight magazine when saying, this is now my biggest focus. No, my biggest focus is the fact that no one checks the fucking backups. So if we are popped tomorrow, we have no way to go back. It's like, let's fix it then. We should. Suddenly we have investment, right? Because we put it just one word with some color and the numbers to back it up. And there's a process that backs it up. Talking about the process. So the way we did it at the uni, and I'm okay to share that, but if we look at the CMMI score, and we want to be all the way there in the 5, but be realistic, I don't have budget for 5. I have budget for 3, maybe 4 on a good case. So let's start plotting where do we want to go, and then let's measure ourselves against where we are on that maturity. And as granular as we can be, we can start doing identification. And then what becomes really, really cool on the right-hand side is I can start plotting projects and justify it around the framework. And again, it's easy to get, not easy. It helps get resources, get business alignment, get budgets. Budget is a resource, but get someone to say, yes, we need to do the investment in the right thing.
But if backups was your problem, why is it not got a project on the list?
But this is a far, far, far later representation. So this is the project list that was updated in November, and the CAF revision was done in end of April, May. And between the two, it was fixed. That's why I can show you that.
So you haven't got on there your successes. You ticked off. Because that shows your progress and wait.
So this is the insert from the board slides I used to present. And first of all, there's a few pages before this. This is just as a way to frame the conversation. But they also had the quarter-on-quarter version of that, right? So some projects are short, couple of weeks, we fix something, we move on, everyone is happy, we go down the pub, have fun. Yay. Some projects are 2 years long, like doing identity and access management or changing finance backend systems or whatever 17 different stakeholders at the university requires to be engaged. This can suddenly impact the delivery of it. But don't look at it as a way to measure the university, look at it as a way to frame the thinking. So that's the point of it. The point of it is to bring that information back regularly to your manager, to your board, to whoever, to the gods, and show this is how we improve. And the next stage of it, if I would have stayed at university, was to break it down to departments and start measuring the different schools, the different business side of the uni around maturity and capabilities. Because again, it gives us a risk-based approach proactively to managing our security rather than just, let's just do it. I left it here, but after 2 years of doing this, we got quite a nice, using the same assessment firm. So I won't read it to you, but it was no, I've taken it away. It was it was nice to see that it works, right? And never mind the assessors. It's more importantly when it comes from the board and the board of governors. Most universities are there for knowledge, not necessarily for capitalization. And that helps them understand. But this is applied for any framework, for anything that we choose to do. It helps that building a roadmap, giving a direction, not necessarily being ahead of. Yeah, it's a good one. This one is not an AI. Couple of more things. So first of all, I figured I'd put some predictions kind of to try and wrap it. So, and that was generated with Nano Banana a few years back when we had a conversation around patching, and I am an old fart in reasonably young industry, and patching being issued throughout, like forever. So it's not going to change. We still see SQLi injections, which is 25 years old or something like that. 1999? I can Google it later. I suspect most framework will heavily include AI, not as a side document, but embedding into the capabilities. But we don't really know what AI is going to be, and I'm pretty sure that quantum and post-quantum cryptography will be one way to tackle and deal with AI up until AI will run on quantum chips. So this is kind of some of my prediction. I was sure I had different order for the slides. Biden. So there's a couple of important slides that fuck cancer. Robin mentioned Mike in the opening keynotes. Mike is the reason I ever came to StateCon. Mike was a good friend of mine. Sadly, passed away in March 2019. Where's Robin? He walked away. He could have stayed and remember. More recently this year, for those who knew Thomas passed away in end of April this year in Ireland. Both died from cancer. So I kind of, if I'm giving a talk, I think it's important. Give me 2 seconds of glory, but maybe to remind myself and all of us that, if something is weird in us, go and freaking see a doctor and try and catch it sooner rather than later. And fuck cancer, it sucks. People die from it. Really good people. I was sure I had a Q&A type slides, so I can open the floor and we can have a bit of conversation. Because I wasn't sure if I'm going to speak for the whole hour or not, but I guess I can leave this one. You don't have to scan the QR code. I will tell you it's clean, but I will have told you it's clean also if it wasn't. So that's you're on risk, but the link is above it. If you want to stay in touch, I think this is a good time for questions, and that's as much as I prepared.
I got one you to start with, right? Prioritization. How do you? So you land at the university.
Yep.
You've got a framework. You've got a couple of frameworks in mind. You've got Cyber Essentials and you've got CAF. You've got some mental heuristics from your experience, and you land there, and you've got a sea of, if you're being polite, sort of red yellowish. So how do you prioritize?
So available resource, effort, and value. Right, so I mentioned value-based activities, right? So to do something that doesn't give me any ROI at the end of it, I just wasted resource.
So you've got an effort impact assessment you're doing.
You try, right? So you open your favorite cell editing program, and you start throwing data into. It has to start somewhere, and you start with a guesstimate, right? If zoom into vulnerability management, right? One cool way I've seen it really, really catching and working in a university, one of my colleagues back at the time, is when they made the massive university completely compartmentalized. The way they operate, right? Every school is different. Everyone runs their own IT, cybersecurity, kind of try to look at the top. So what they've done is they pretty much gamified it with leaderboards, and they made their own scoring method, but it works for them. And no one wants to be at the top of the leaderboard because it means that you suck at your job. Okay. So suddenly you create this internal competition, which still supports part of your focus and you enabling the business, right? So you have an effort in the creation of that module, for example, and then you let the business run itself. One of the things I'm quite fond of is, if we can, when it's feasible, is empowering our users. It just means not just user awareness, right? If you look at any funky startup company nowadays, go and bring your own hardware. We all do 7 layers of verification for our cloud providers. But when you need to patch your Visual Studio Code, then you don't want to close it because you have 17 things on the go at the same time, or your browser, or whatever it might be. If I send you a nudge on, I don't know, Slack, Teams, you name it, and remind you that it's being monitored, and say, all you need to do is restart the system or click on this button, do it for you. Just make sure you, whatever. Back in the old day when we used to say NetSense, right? We have communication. We empower the business. We should have a way to monitor and quantify that as cybersecurity, right? In leadership. But you suddenly make it a business problem. What I like to, maybe to wrap it up, what I like to say to a lot of organizations I work with of all, is I'm here to tell you it's your problem. Especially if I don't have resources. If at the university we would end up being a department of 2. There's so much 2 people can do unless you're the Power BI team, right? I need dashboards. And you do IT deployment, right? You suddenly look after all the endpoints. How about if I'll get you a tool that makes your life easier? I'll justify it on my budget. I want the report, but you get the benefit. Yeah. And again, that leads again to prioritization. So vulnerabilities is a great example. Do we always go for the CVVs with the 9s, or the 5 that's been around the system for the last 16 years still relevant? Right? And now with AI-based attacks, 0 days are great, but look, there are lots of little things that I can daisy chain so rapidly, and as a defender, I don't stand a chance. Right? So let's try and prevent rather than recover. The whole point of moving to doing things proactively. And resources are a pain in the ass, right? So automation helps, AI helps, Source helps, and the right collaboration between teams helps. Where I start is by trying to build that bridges across different departments. And then I can enable them to take ownership of those problems. We just know that they exist, right? We don't necessarily create them. We not necessarily can fix them.
Thank you very much. My question is regarding Cyber Essential and universities. So, if you are setting up a very small business, it's easier to go through the Cyber Essential and
Correct.
then build up. But when you're thinking about universities, that's huge. If you want to go through the Cyber Essential, one of the problems is managed devices, because a lot of universities use phones and they can't afford buying phones for staff. How do you go around this issue?
This is super interesting. Now, specifically for universities, if you are in academia, I would highly encourage you to talk at least to the GISC team. They're very, very embedded with NCC, and they can help you with any specific challenges, right? What we've done, so when I came to the university, allegedly they had the Cyber Essential. I found your certificate. I know the assessor. Needless to say, I had evidence that they never did, or at least as the claim of a blanket achievement of the standard. And then you go again through prioritization effort, and it's I want to build it long term. This is my roadmap. Within 5 years, I want the whole business to be covered by the same Cyber Essential controls. And then you identify your gaps, for example, mobile device management. Perfect. We didn't have a lot. We had Jamf, and we managed access. Again, there are conversations you can have with NCC around how to achieve those, or with IASME, how to achieve the standard. But what we've done is we've taken, these are the crown jewels, right? My top performing school, my research unit that generates a gazillion money for the business, for the unit, for whatever it may be. And you start there. And if you can't secure the device, you have a normal conversation with the business leaders. Again, those bridges that we build to saying, we need to do this. It's the right thing for you. You want to secure funding. You want to get more students. You want to do, I don't know, crazy research, innovative, behind closed doors and the rest of it. But you really need that as a barrier, right? With that comes a certain level of responsibility. And then, if it's justified, right, academia can justify a lot by research grant. So you might be buying a university managed devices for all of these members of staff. And you adjust your policy to support it. And then you build that holistic approach that in those areas when I satisfied the standard, Cyber Essential, right, which is reasonably easy, I'm okay. And everything else becomes still a little bit open. Now, let's think about universities in a different way. When you have a open shared network where the lecturers connect to because it's easier to get the stuff from Google Drive even though Microsoft has, right? Go figure. And that's how they want to teach. And they've been professors and emeritus for longer than I've been members of staff. So when they say go, they're a lot more senior than me. How do you manage to keep infrastructure secure? And how do you be able to deliver that right segmentation and separation of responsibilities and duties at the network, device, and the user? That's where the challenges are, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. And then it's become easy to do the identification. When we go to other aspect, not just phones, Cyber Essential doesn't say you need to monitor your applications. But how much of your business risk lives? Oh. You broke it. It's fine. How much of your business risk lives in those applications, whether it's the seats or student information records, whatever vendor it might be, or the finance tools, right? But they're not effectively managed because they are commodities. There's something that just there. But honestly, work with the business. It is hard.
I had a question around just like frameworks and audit standards, right? So like CAF, Cyber Essentials, right? We've got things like ISO 27000, and then like you mentioned earlier, CMMI, right? Like again, monkey out of the hat because not many people remember it. But like I said, it's from the 2000s, and it's something that I still don't know about because, like you said, right? If it's a pass or a fail, how do we then progress? If you use something like CMMI, you can say, okay, you've got between a 2 and a 4, you know where to go. And then moving from that, like once you pick what you're going to use for your audit standard, where do you think things are going to move to? Because I'm thinking of, like, for example, Delve, right? They were passing SOC 2 through an AI agent, and they were saying, oh, you're SOC 2 compliant. And then when you look under the hood, we realised that actually a lot of these businesses weren't, and then Dell went under as an AI company and got wiped up, Y Combinator and all the rest of it. So,
there we go.
Where do you see like frameworks and audits moving to? It sounds like you've done this a lot longer than I have.
I'll show you a cheat sheet. This is don't tell my customers, even though I work for someone, so it's not relevant now. But this is a spreadsheet from hell, right? It's called Secure Control Framework. It's you need to register. They have a GitHub repo.
It's not the Black Hills one, is it?
No. It's I maybe should have. I didn't plan to put it on screen. I thought about it last night, and I didn't have enough time to even look at the references for it. But what's really interesting here is that you have the control description, some controls, grouping, blah 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 blah, and you have the question, and you have the answers. Right? Now, once we start scrolling to the right, I hope I don't have any filters. But first of all, favorite bit, look. Not an original thought, as I said. There is maturity levels overlaid against it. And again, use maturity level to your advantage. It doesn't have to be cryptic as manage or define or whatever it is. But then, you have all the freaking standards you can think of. So, I'll tell you what. Go and pick a standard. I don't even know where I stop. But let's see what we have. Here is NIST. That's NIST Privacy Framework, right? Because now that's what I'm interested in. Let's go with ISO then, 27,000 and more. So I'll filter on everything which is not known, and I get NIST 27,000 more. right? This is suddenly my business focus. But now I can see, if I leave all this rest of this junk exposed, right? It's very easy to do a pivot table and say, show me the overlays. And if you done this, you're 80% into SOC 2. Right? And guess what? If you do a framework-based security leadership or within your business, one of the things you will want to do over time is to consolidate those audit dates. And if you can do it in one shot and satisfy 3 standards, it's like, look at me. Same cost as well, right? I pay a little bit more for the assessor.
It's why I use CIS as my main, because it's so fine grained.
CIS is amazing. It's too much sometimes.
It is
and start with Cyber Essential and move to CIS, because CIS is very technical.
Yeah, so
even with the framework.
You can take what you want from it to fit.
This is what frameworks are for. You need to know what the focus is for the business. So you use that as your justification, if you like, and then you do the alignment across what makes sense, what we need. So just Google it. You'll find it. It's very foundable. This is a 2025 version. There's about once every quarter they update. There's specific for AI. On the bottom, there's some risk taxonomy and how to use the document. I honestly think it's really, really good. Sorry.
I work in highly regulated industries, and we're under continuous audit, so I recognise the spreadsheet and a lot of it. I think CMMI is good for conveying progress at the sort of executive level. But the frameworks, in my experience, sort of tend to lead to security by checkbox. Like we're satisfying this control, without actually sort of thinking a little bit further and saying, well, yeah, okay, we do backups and we do disaster recovery testing, but does it actually work? Is it actually covering what it's supposed to cover? How do you translate that to the individual practitioner level, where they're thinking beyond sort of that's the control and basically we're technically satisfied it, to that's the control?
That's the comment I forgot. Thank you very much. That's the comment I forgot during my talk. So, and it was in part of the way we do magic. So one of the most, especially if you're in a highly regulated environment, hopefully you're doing it already, but one of the most valuable thing we can do, and in my opinion should be doing, is not to ask the security or the technical thing, the questions for the standards. Go and ask finance, go and ask HR, go and ask leadership, go and ask people in the business, right? And then collate the information back in. You want to come in? And then suddenly you get a picture of reality, right? So your engineering team will tell you, yeah, all the apps is super secure. And then someone that's been around the business for 20 years and he goes, no, we all use JDBC connectors and get the data from the back end. You got the... Okay, but we don't have the money to invest in monitoring our databases or whatever, data lakes or whatever they are. So we just hope that everyone is doing what we expect them to do, but everyone just want to get on with their job, right? The classic security gate and people working around it. So, yeah. Nearly on time as well. Go for it.
Risk catalog. Where does that fit into your whole mindset?
It's a start.
And who do you speak to about the risk catalog?
Depends.
When you talking to the business, right? The business is always saying, tell them about risk, and you start to unload about risk to them, and they're like,
so
I was thinking of something simpler than this. So how does that work?
Right, we'll deal with that in a second. I try to work with, if I have a risk team or a risk function within the organization, they most likely did not think about cybersecurity. Most likely. Maturity in the past, let's say 7 years, it's a lot better, but still not in an effective way. Now, what I have seen at the university is that when we opened that risk platform and we created the ability for everyone to raise risks, suddenly we needed a lot more time to manage the feedback that we got and do prioritization. So it's a double-edged sword. But where I start is, let's say, with the top 5, top 10 risks, which you know about. They are those basic questions that we ask the business is, what's most important for you? What's going to happen if
It's not changed.
It's not changed. It's not changed. It's all the same. It works. Why? I mean, the problem is with implementation. The problem is with the JFDIs rather than the structure. If you have a structure, point A in the CAF is around risk management. And that is the basis for some of your decision making, some of your project planning, and those business prioritization, right? So if my risk number one is ransomware, and all EDRs are as good as each other, and no vendor paying my salary or anything like that, right? But I need to have something, or I choose to take the risk and run with nothing. And then I save myself tons of money. What is it, $50 a asset nowadays, or roughly that? Like, brilliant. It can be a massive cost reduction if I'm happy to take that risk. But it should be that number one risk, right? Because if ransomware or anything that disable me from processing transaction, giving service to customers, paying salaries, the things that really matters for the business. And threat modeling, maybe Kirk should have been here and we should give the conversation to talk together, but threat modeling help understand our risk for the business, but generally we do threat modeling for our apps or for our public exposure. We don't do it wide enough, and this is some of the challenges, but risk language works, and I will party up with the CRO or with the internal audit department if they are the risk holders, whoever holds the risk register, and try and support and influence the cybersecurity risk, right? Best on resources and availability. But I'm pretty sure you can guess the top 5, 6, 7 risks that should be in everyone's... Patching, ransomware, business email compromise, right? Where's my money going to go? Financial systems not being available. Why they're not being available? A whole different conversation. But when we go opening that risk register for everyone, suddenly you have micro details that are not suitable for that risk level budget justification.
Have to roll things up into a risk register that you can engage your senior management with. Because if you're carrying 1,000 risks across the business, it's
different companies with different maturity, appetite, right? So I was very lucky at the university. During my interviewing process, some of the emphasis I put was that we're going to do things with framework, so it gives us direction, it gives us structure. We still JFDIs. We still
a framework-based approach to start with.
I'll be honest. We still JFDI'd a lot of things because I personally believe that security should enable businesses to run forward rather than saying, close the gates, we can't do anything anymore, and no one comes in, no one goes out, and look at us, we're secure, but we can't do it. Shit.
You wouldn't last long enough. An organisation if you tried to do that.
But, yeah, and it's a question of how do we do it? Do we do it aggressively, or do we do it amicable separation from bad habits to new ways of working? And this is really the challenge with this framework, is let's find a way to do it that we engage in conversation. Thank you very much. Hopefully it didn't bore you.